welcome back to another video. This week I will be talking about my current training levels based on the 5 main goals I've set myself for 2023, and I'll also be talking about my training background. So as I mentioned in my previous video, my goals for this year are a 60-second freestanding handstand, a full range handstand push-up. Now this means using a deficit to allow for the elbows to close fully and the shoulders to come right down to the hands, as opposed to it being a headstand level. A straddle front lever held for at least 3 seconds. The full pike position. Now this is a little ambiguous, so I'll provide a bit more detail later as to how I will measure this. And a single step QDR in each direction. I've also decided to work on my skipping and jump rope abilities. I use this all the time as a warm-up tool. I think it's invaluable for getting blood flowing before any session. So I thought, why not take advantage of the opportunity to get a bit more proficient at this at the same time. So first of all, my primary goal of a 60-second freestanding handstand. Now I actually never learned, or to be honest, even attempted to handstand as a kid, despite always being really active and into practically any sport that was available to me. I just don't think it ever occurred to me to actually try. I first actually had a go at handstands back in 2016 or 17 when I attended a couple of Ido Portal's workshops, and I did a little bit of online coaching with him for a few months where I would work through a lot of the line drills and some of the wall drills and actually managed a couple of decent holds. My ability with the wall drills was probably a lot higher than it actually needs to be at this point. I could hold a pretty straight and solid wall-facing handstand for 60 seconds for multiple sets in the same session. So when I actually did manage to kick up successfully, I would get a decent hold and even topped 30 seconds a couple of times, but the kick up itself was never particularly good or consistent. Up until the end of last year, my kick-up success rate was probably around 25%, but in the past 4 to 5 weeks, I think I've improved it to more or less 75%. I think the main reason for this breakthrough was a tip I got from one of Yuri Marmostein's videos, where he recommends separating the kick-up element from the balancing. And it makes so much sense to do it this way, it's just not the way I thought to do it. Instead of spending a ton of energy kicking up and then trying to switch into balancing mode, I've been able to spend my time focusing on really slow and accurate kick-ups to find a balanced position, even just for a second or two. And to improve my rebalancing ability, I've been using the wall to find a progressively better line over time, so that when it comes to actually practicing the freestanding handstand, it's a lot easier for me to get into decent holds consistently. The handstand push-up is something that I have worked on before for a small amount, but not as a primary goal. So I'm going to approach this the same way as the handstand, by deconstructing the skill to work on the individual elements. A large part of the goal is achieved by having a really solid handstand, so while I work on that, I'm able to focus exclusively on my overhead pushing strength by using a range of different drills. Currently, I can perform some decent reps of a wall-facing headstand push-up while maintaining a reasonable body line, along with a good shoulder position. The head does have to travel quite far forward to allow for the forearms to remain vertical, which I'm also able to achieve. While I'm not at the stage to perform it freestanding, I actually am able to perform a partial range and press back up into a balanced position, which is something that I have achieved recently. So in previous years, I actually spent far more time focusing on bent arm strength, especially on the rings, and I really didn't give all that much thought to the straight arm elements. But as some of my longer term goals are going to be based on straight arm pushing strength, I've decided that I'm going to need to balance this with pulling strength, so the front lever is a really obvious choice. In the past, I only made it as far as a decent tuck hold, but recently I've been able to open this up to get to an open tuck where the thighs are perpendicular to the ground. So this is about the level that I'll be working at for now. And my good friend James, otherwise known as Straight Talking Fitness, who has one of the best front lever abilities I know of, recently pointed out that the strength that I have in the top half of an eccentric lever from the inverted position to parallel is significantly greater than the strength I've got in the bottom half. So I'm going to spend quite a bit of time working on closing the gap by working from the dead hang up to parallel. So the pike is a slightly different story to the other goals I have. I've never actually worked on this position specifically, and in the past I absolutely hated it, which is part of the reason why I've decided to make it my first flexibility goal. I've always struggled with posterior chain flexibility, and especially in the calf and the back of the knee area. And to be quite honest, I've never put in the time to make substantial improvements to actually make it enjoyable. I spent far more time working on the pancake straddle position and actually did make quite a bit of progress there. So my pike level right now is honestly pretty average, but it's far more comfortable and accessible than it was in the past. From cold, I'm actually able to get into a relatively comfortable pike position, and after a few specific drills to loosen up the calves and a couple of sets of weighted Jefferson curls, I can actually get significantly lower than I've ever been able to in the past. It's still a challenge to maintain a locked knee position right at the bottom of the Jefferson curl, but I am learning to enjoy the pain. So last on the list is the full single step QDR circles. I want to achieve this as it is another gateway to a lot of higher level skills and abilities, and to be honest, it's just a lot of fun doing this kind of stuff. I've wanted to achieve it for quite some time now, but again, haven't been able to put the time into it to make the progress consistent. So in playing around recently, I've realised that I've actually managed to do a number of QDR circles where I take 3 to 4 steps, and they're actually better than I thought, although in comparison to what is possible, they're still pretty average, and I really do want it to become a lot smoother. My weakness for quite some time has been the single arm balancing position, specifically on my left hand side, but I have made some decent progress on this recently, and I'm becoming a bit more proficient at entering and exiting. So all of these goals have quite a lot in common. They all provide a really solid foundation for being able to develop much higher level skills while still being pretty serious achievements in their own right. That is it for this week, so I hope you found this video interesting or useful. Next week I'll be covering my current training phase and the plans and specific drills that I'm using, so to ensure you don't miss it, be sure to hit the subscribe button. Thanks again for watching. I hope to see you next week in my next video, and as always, happy training.